Imagine waking up one day as a couple and going to bed that night as an individual. The loss of a spouse is sad. It can be sudden. Sometimes you know it's coming, but many times you don't. Regardless of how it happens, there are many decisions that are going to have to be made in a very changing economic and financial environment that you find yourself in the next day. We're going to talk about what we can help you do at the Financial Enhancement Group and things that we think you ought to consider. Well, good morning and welcome to Consider This Program. I am your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Angi Kinser.
Happy to have you along. We are talking about new beginnings, and sometimes those new beginnings are really exciting. Going to college, buying your first house, retiring, getting married. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're a little more problematic. And so we're going to introduce to you one of the saddest things that happen, but it's also one of the surest things that happen, and that's the loss of a spouse. 70% of the time in my relationship, Barb and I've been married for 32 years. 70% of the time, the man dies first, leaving the wife behind. So if I say that, please don't get frustrated with me. But that is the reality. All right. So go ahead and you can read the
scenario.
You can read the scenario.
Okay. Maggie lost her husband, Jim, to COVID. She had an IRA and a Roth IRA as well as a 403B. Jim had a 401k, life insurance of $250,000, an IRA, a Roth IRA, and they had a trust account somewhere where they served as co-trustees. Neither was taking Social Security as Jim was only 56. They have 2 adult children, financially neutral, and 1 grandchild. What would FEG recommend for them to do?
Well, the first thing you do is breathe, and the second thing you do is look at the calendar, right? So one of the frustrating things in the CFP world that we're taught professionally is to tell people, if something happens to your spouse, make sure you don't do anything for the next 90 days to 6 months, because you're going to act emotionally. And that's true, but it's really limited advice. When somebody passes away, and you have a child still living at home, somebody who's under 18, a minor, then you actually get to file a tax return for this year, the year you're in where you lost your spouse, and the next year as married filing jointly. You get a bonus year to do it. In this case, she has adult children, right? No children at home. So if something would have happened to him on Christmas Eve, right, she had a whopping 5 days to be the last time she ever got to be married filing jointly. And there are major tax implications in that story that you need to deal with and take care of. Now, as a general rule, the fewer accounts you have, the better they can be managed from an efficiency standpoint and a cost standpoint, because with the IRS, the more money you make, the higher tax percentage you pay. With money managers and investment accounts, typically the more money that you have, the lower the fee percentage that you pay. Also, the cost of trading, if you happen to deal with any of those. In our case, there are no more trading costs that are there. But when you look at those, you're able to consolidate a lot. And let's face it, we pay a lot more interest to larger accounts as individuals with our own money than we do smaller accounts. If you got 10 buckets of money, it's very easy to orphan emotionally some of that money, even though it all does very much count. So in her case, she is a spouse. This is an important thing to understand, right? So his 401k, assuming that it was all tax deferred, we would help her roll it into her IRA. So there's 2 different people who can inherit as people. 2 different types of people who can inherit an IRA or a 401k, spouses and non-spouses, right? So if a spouse inherits it, they have the ability to roll it over into their own name. So his 401k can join her IRA, and there's no problem with that at all. And his IRA, on the other hand, here's where there's an interesting thing that you've got to consider. With an IRA, you have to wait until 59 and a half to get money out if you roll it into your own name, because it now does become her IRA. On the other hand, she could elect to take it or part of it as an inherited IRA, where she has access to the money now, right? But doesn't have to pay the 10% federal penalty for taking it out before 59 and a half. That's the only time, assuming the beneficiaries are the same and everything else is equal, it's the only time I wouldn't tell somebody to consolidate the accounts, again, for efficiency and to make life a little bit better. His Roth IRA can roll into her Roth IRA, so we're now going to have about half the accounts that we had before. The life insurance is going to come out, and this is one of the things that's confusing. Life insurance is income tax-free. It's an income tax-free benefit. So if I think you said it was $250,000, so that $250,000 has no taxes on it at all. It probably is going to get added into the trust account. Now, the trust account, I believe you said they were both co-trustees, right? So he is now deceased, right? And so now she is the single trustee. Now the document, the planning document, the legal paperwork that's put together may say upon his demise that another trustee, a successor trustee, steps up to help the mom. Most of the time, that is not the case. The mom may ask for help, but most of the time, they get help, but they're not necessarily a legal help, if you will. They're just trying to be supportive of mom in terms of what's going on. But nothing changes inside of the trust. There's no change in the titling. There's no change in anything else. It's still what's called a revocable or a grantor trust. She is still alive, still fully functional. She may feel mentally incapacitated right now because of the loss of a husband, but she's still able to function and to get stuff done. So did I cover all of the?
You also mentioned Social Security. Now they weren't old enough yet, but so what happens with that?
Not really a whole lot. It's going to depend on whether or not they both had reasonably equal incomes working or whether he made the lion's share of the money. Social Security is based on your highest 35 years of earning, right? And so with him dying so young, his benefit's probably not going to be that great. And my guess is in this situation, that poor lady is going to have to go back to work, right, to be able to get some. So it's just one of those things that you're going to have to figure out. You can go to socialsecurity.gov and put in the information and pull out your data, but it's going to assume that he's still making income, which we both know is obviously not the case. So that's one. Secondly is to get right on top of the tax planning, making sure that you're paying attention to what's going on. If she doesn't have a job, in this example, I don't remember you reading that she did, but if she doesn't have a job and she doesn't have a lot of earned income this year, she may very well want to recognize money out of that IRA at a much lower tax bracket than what she may find herself in future years. So there's, this is one of those situations where I even hate saying make lemonade out of lemons, but you still want to be very, very smart about what's going on. One of the key things, one of the uniquenesses that we have at the Financial Enhancement Group, I think, is we really do focus on the journey, helping you understand that it's not just what market returns are today or the tax return looks like this year. It's what's this going to look like over the next 20, 25, 30 years of your life, even when the unexpected happens.
And all of this stuff sounds so complicated, yet a lot of times when you suddenly find that you're a widow or a widower, everyone says, don't do anything. But what are they talking about? Like big ticket things or big decisions?
So
because there are things you have to do, obviously.
There are some things you should do. We watched a lady sell her house, and I watched two reverses of this. I watched one lady sell her house and pay more money to buy it back because when the moving day came, she couldn't do it. That was long before you were at FEG. That was in the mid-'90s. And I watched another person put probably $100,000 into their house to get it ready for them, and woke up one morning and realized she just couldn't live there anymore, and had to sell it and was able to recoup the money that she'd put into the house. So there's some decisions you want to delay, but there's other decisions that have to be made very, very quickly. We run this all by checklist. I won't tell you that it's not emotional for me. But sadly, we lose people every year, and we build checklists around this kind of stuff. So my planning team knows exactly what to do. So it doesn't mean there's not emotions. It doesn't mean there's not empathy. It doesn't mean there's not tears. Some of these people are very, very close and near and dear to us, but it's a matter of being able to have a process that's in place to say, these are the things that you do, and these are the things that you have time to think about. and to help get people
Well,
through
and
it.
there's a lot of things you're not going to think about at all. I'm sure you'd want to change beneficiaries and
Well, when you move them into your IRAs now will probably be the beneficiaries would probably become your two children, right? Your trust should already be set up to deal with the loss of one of the two spouses. That shouldn't be a problem. But changing the beneficiary forms, and it's why every year when we do your family update at the Financial Enhancement Group, that's one of the things we confirm is this still the right beneficiary. There are marriages, there are divorces, there are deaths. We do have to deal with the fact that life changes.
we had a question come in. Can we cover this real quickly? Now that we're talking about children, if a child has earned income less than 6,000, can you gift them 6,000 to deposit into a Roth IRA?
So you can put up to 100% of what you had as earned income into an IRA or a Roth IRA every year, assuming that you qualify. So if the child made $4,000, you can't put $6,000 in the Roth IRA. You can only put $4,000 into the Roth IRA. So you can go up to 6 if you're under 50, up to 7 if you're over 50, but never more than what your earned income is. You can, however, support your spouse. So if your spouse didn't happen to have earned income, but you did, and you were within the threshold of what the IRS allows, you can make a contribution for both sides. I doubt if your underage child is married, but, just thought I would throw that out there as well. Hey, these are the kind of things that we cover in the Next Steps meeting. And what we really want you to understand is as things progress and change in life, we are here. And when you have questions, don't hesitate to call and ask. That's what we're here for. We help reduce financial regrets. And that is our promise as fiduciaries. We want to do our best to make sure that people are on the right track, making the right decisions as fiduciaries. We don't sell anything, don't want to sell it. We just provide advice. So you can reach Angi and get signed up for your Next Steps meeting, 800-928-4001, or give her or get on our website at yourlifeafterwork.com. You can sign up easily for a meeting there. We are virtual ready, and in limited situations, we're able to even come in with the planning team to be able to meet with people face-to-face where that's necessary. Again, 800-928-4001. I hope you found that helpful. Again, if you want more, you can find it streaming on our page later on.